I have here 9 books that have really changed my perspective on the world, and they've really shaped who I am as a man, as a person, as a business owner, a creative person. So without further ado, here's the first one. Think and Grow Rich, which I did make an entire video on at some time in the past. You can go and watch that if you like. This book is sort of the mindset and entrepreneurial business Bible, at least for me. It teaches you, to summarize very simply, that you become what you think about. And being rich doesn't just mean having a bunch of money in the bank. Being rich means being healthy, having rich relationships with yourself and with your life partner, husband, wife, your kids, your parents, relatives, friends. It means living a good, happy, and fulfilled life. And rich in this book is a subjective term that has different meaning for everybody. It's extremely easy to read. It's broken down in layman's terms. And Napoleon Hill, the author, he was actually conscripted by, it wasn't Dale Carnegie, who's the author of the next book I'm gonna look at, but it was another Carnegie, no relation, but he basically invented the American Steel Corporation. And he came to Napoleon Hill and he said, "You should write a book." And he said, "Okay." And then he said, "You should spend the next, I think it was a decade or something, researching all the most successful people in America and putting them into this book." And that's exactly what he did. This is timeless wisdom from early to mid 20th century business people, all compiled into one book, which is 300 and something pages long. This is a nice copy. I like that it would, would probably last me forever. And I always have it with me. Right now I'm reading this book, Alan Watts, which I'm not really gonna cover today. The point being, that's kind of on my table here, and this book is always just there with that book. Next book is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. In one of the last couple videos I put up, I kind of touched on some stuff that Dale Carnegie teaches. The subheading, secondary title, I don't know, is The Only Book You Need to Lead You to Success. And that's a fairly accurate statement. This book teaches you many things. It teaches you the importance of complimenting people and not criticizing them. So I suppose an example from my own life, just to give you some context, is I have a subcontractor that I've been working with for several years, and every once in a while he makes a mistake. And I've made it a habit to not criticize him for his mistakes, but instead to jump down into the mistake with him and make it my own problem and resonate with him on a bit of a deeper level instead of being that traditional disciplinarian figure, because we all know how that ends. Nobody wants to be criticized or told what to do. If you criticize somebody, they'll resent you and it'll put strain on your relationship, especially if it's a working relationship. So he goes over that, and then he also goes over the importance of maintaining relationships. He also goes over asking questions, you know. I do want to just scrub through it and look at some of the chapter titles here, because I'm realizing I'm a little rusty on what he was talking about in this book. I have to reread it, I think. Thank you for your patience. The basic synopsis of this entire book is to just be a down-to-earth, enjoyable person to be around. And this comes naturally for some of us, and it doesn't come so naturally for others. I had a mentor that I was working with years ago, and he told me about this book, and then he told me that I didn't need to read it. And then after I didn't listen to that and I read it anyways, I was very humbled by that compliment. And I suppose I am somebody who did always have sort of these teachings just within me, which is basically just, you know, if you're a dude, be a gentleman. If you're a girl, be a sweet girl. Be kind to people. Minimize your expectations of them. Take ownership over your decisions. Take ownership over the mistakes of the people that you employ or work with. Good book. Next one I have here, which isn't actually the book. This is just one of the books in the series. This is, I think, the second or the third one in this series. This one's called The 10th Insight. Getting a phone call. Hi, baby.
Hey, love ya.
Bye, me. Oh, was that me? Okay, this book, The 10th Insight, it's not the actual book. The actual book is The Celestine Prophecy, which is another book that I've made an entire video about. It's another book that I've made an entire video about. That one is a fiction. It's a fiction book, but it teaches non-fiction sort of psychology, pseudoscience ideas. The main idea that it teaches is that all of us have a coping mechanism that takes energy from people that we developed as children. And really, it comes down to which one you are and which one people use on you. So the 4 energy leech styles are the intimidator, the interrogator, the aloof, and the poor me. The intimidator is kind of self-explanatory. It's like a bully or someone who puffs their chest out and is sort of domineering. And they see that it affects you the same way as a bully would see it affects some scrawny kid or something like me. And that gives the intimidator energy. The interrogator asks a million questions, like too many questions. The aloof is indifferent, so they just seem like they don't care whether they're with you or not. And the poor me whines and complains. Now, everybody uses one of these, and most people don't realize they're doing it. And I don't mean use it like all the time. I mean when your energy is low and maybe you're feeling like insecure, like on edge or something. I recently noticed that my go-to is indifferent or aloof. M, who I was just on the phone with, calls it being being dismissive. So when my mom comes to visit or her sister comes to visit, I start to get a little bit aloof because their energy affects me and makes me need to put some kind of barrier up. But I've started to pay more attention to it, and now I tell them to tell me if I'm being, as she says, dismissive or aloof, indifferent, because that then takes energy from her, right? Now the idea with those energy leeches is to acknowledge which one you are, acknowledge who's using these on you, and to figure out how to just make your own energy and come to every situation you're in with just a good vibe. So doing activities that you enjoy give you energy, so you can build that energy up, and then you can just share it with people willingly instead of them taking it from you by force. I don't exactly remember what happens in this book, The 10th Insight, but it was also a New York Times bestseller. So it was a good one too. Next one is Alan Watts, the book. I can't summarize what's in this book. And I mean, I would even go so far as to expand on saying just read Alan Watts, the book, to say just read anything by Alan Watts. If you're not familiar with Alan Watts, he's the English philosopher guy who's been kind of, over the years, trendy on like Instagram Reel audio, where he's talking about relationships or philosophical stuff. He took Eastern religion, so Zen Buddhism, and brought it to the West. He was in San Francisco in the 60s, I believe. He was born in London and then moved to the States. And he had a radio program for years. And just anything by Alan Watts is the most eye-opening, humbling, and reassuring experience that I think I've ever had with an author. It's nonfiction, of course, and it's philosophical in nature. Great books, Alan Watts. The next one, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, which you can see is a mess. Rick Rubin is a music producer. He's produced System of a Down, Red Hot Chili Peppers, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a book that I've only read one time. I should really read it 2 or 3 more times. It is a work of art in its own right, especially considering that Rick Rubin, over the years didn't really speak much in the public eye. He just did his work. He's a very meditative, spiritual individual, which is almost ironic with the type of music he was producing. And he is just a creative genius that is connected to some other realm. And the beautiful thing about this book is just that he was so, out of the public eye for his entire career. And now he's just unloading all of this wisdom onto anyone who's creative at all. And even if you're not creative professionally or even like practicing as a creative person, he argues, and I think it's the first chapter in the book, that everyone is creative. And yeah, everyone is a creator. And it's just profound. I mean, even so much so that I feel I should read the first couple lines of this. Those who do not engage in the traditional arts might be wary of calling themselves artists. They might perceive creativity as something extraordinary or beyond their capabilities, a calling for the special few who are born with these gifts. Fortunately, this is not the case. Creativity is not a rare ability. It is not difficult to access. Creativity is a fundamental aspect of being human. It's our birthright, and it's for all of us. creativity doesn't exclusively relate to making art. We all engage in this act on a daily basis. His argument is that whatever you do is creative. You are part of creation. You came out of the universe, and everything you do is a creation. The turn you make in your car is creative. The supper you make is creative. And reading this book is just a meditation on what the human experience is. The creative act. Rick Rubin. Next one is something else I've touched on a couple times, which is the 5 a.m. Club by Rubin Sharma. I'm currently working through how literal to take this book, because there was a point in my life where I did take it literally for about 2 years. And while it did changed my life and helped me blossom my photo and video business into what it's become, it also put a lot of strain on other parts of my life, because as you can imagine, waking up at 5 a.m. every day, 7 days a week, means that you have to sacrifice other things. You have to sacrifice going to a movie. You have to sacrifice seeing fireworks with your girlfriend, or, I mean, I think the worst for me was we were camping for M's birthday, and I had to go to bed at 9 in the tent so I could wake up at 5. And she didn't really comment on it or complain or anything. She's great like that, but it's just something to consider, basically. I got away from doing this 5 a.m. club thing for, and sorry, I'm starting to ramble on my own personal story. You can fast forward if you don't care. This will probably take 30 seconds. I got away from doing this, and I don't know if it was for that reason. I think it was more, I probably just got complacent. It's honestly an amazing thing to do, waking up early. But I got completely away from it. Oh, I remember what happened. I got hurt, yeah. I was still doing it, and then when I broke my leg and I was in bed and I was kind of, on painkillers and stuff, it's kind of hard to wake up at 5 and, read, write, meditate, exercises, which is what he teaches in this book. Long story short, I'm starting to kind of get back to a little bit. And there was one line that he had in this book that I really got hung up on, was like the main characters, because it's fictional, like the Celestine prophecy, but it teaches nonfiction fundamentals. He said that if you don't 100% commit, you don't get 100% of the benefit, right? So his argument is 7 days a week, 5 a.m. And I think I got hung up on that, kind of like in The School of Rock when Jack Black says, those who can't do, teach. And those who can't teach, teach Jim. I remember I got hung up on that years ago. But that's not true. I mean, Martin Scorsese is one of the best filmmakers there is, and he has a master class. That guy in Pineapple Express, who I can't remember his name now. The guy in Pineapple Express, why him? Anyways, you know who he is. He's got an acting school he teaches. Point being, it can be easy to get hung up on an idea of something and take it a little too literally, which is what I did. Something that feels reasonable lately, and again, this will likely change multiple times, is challenging myself to do 5 a.m. Monday to Friday and 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday to rest and recoup, simply because the way my lifestyle has kind of become. Em and I like to just kind of relax and, have a drink or two and stay up a little bit later on Fridays and Saturdays. So that's what I'm currently doing. And so far, so good. This book teaches you self-discipline and sacrificing and doing what is required to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. The next one is The Alchemist by Paolo Coelho. This guy. This book is another fiction story, and it was written in Spanish, so it makes the writing extremely simple, like it's very digestible. It's kind of nice, like nighttime reading. And to be honest, I don't have a whole lot to say about this book. I just remember that it really impacted me, so much so that I started reading his other books, and unfortunately they didn't hit quite so hard as this one. Sometimes an author is sort of a one-hit wonder. This sort of overarching theme is, the idea of alchemy. So alchemy is taking some sort of metal and making it into another material. Like you take iron and you can make it into gold. And it sort of instills within you the idea of being like the sculptor of your own destiny, while telling a weird adventure story. I'm gonna see if this is still rolling. Yep. Yep. All right. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This guy. This book took me a long time to get into for some reason. I tried to read it multiple times, and that is kind of my rule with reading. If you start reading something, from the first page or two and you're not feeling good while you're reading it, then just put it down and pick it up when you feel like it. And maybe you'll enjoy reading it later in life once you have kind of the stuff in your head that you need to actually process what they're talking about. So, reading the first paragraph of this book, you are not your mind, the greatest obstacle to enlightenment. Enlightenment, what is that? A beggar had been sitting by the side of the road for over 30 years. One day a stranger walked by. "Spare some change," mumbled the beggar, mechanically holding out his old baseball cap. "I have nothing to give you," said the stranger. Then he asked, "What's that you're sitting on?" "Nothing," replied the beggar. "Just an old box. I have been sitting on it for as long as I can remember." "Ever looked inside?" asked the stranger. "No," said the beggar. "What's the point? There's nothing in there." "Have a look inside," insisted the stranger. The beggar managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw the box was filled with gold. That was a great opening. And to be honest, I don't really know why I wasn't that amped about this book when I first tried to read it. Again, it was just probably just my headspace. My headspace was weird. The meaning of the book is right in the title, right? The Power of Now, or Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment. And this book genuinely does remind you to remain in the moment. Everything that you want out of life is right in front of you. It's right now, in this very moment. You just have to grab it. You have to take action and make it yours. I was talking with my brother the other day about, not specifically about this book, but just about the problems that come from being impatient, meaning, I just want to have that perfect house, or like I want the property, or I want that truck, or I want that financial and creative freedom. And you obsessively think about that, And then you start to obsessively think about how you don't have it. So you're, in fact, pushing it away because you're just thinking about the fact that you don't have it. And then the negative consequence of that is that you're not paying attention. You're focused on what you don't have. So you're not paying attention to the moment, to now, to take the actions required to get the stuff that you want. Great book. This is the second last one, because the last one, I don't think I have on me. One sec, I'm going to go see if I have it. I do have it. But first this one, which again isn't actually, it isn't actually this book. I just put this in here to remind me, because the cover looks the same. The book in question was so good that I gave it away. I gave it to somebody, and I don't remember who I gave it to. It's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind, which again, the name is in the title. So, oh God, where to even start with that one? That book is a very matter-of-fact, scientific outlook on what your subconscious mind is and why it's so important to understand it and use it properly. Your subconscious mind is a supercomputer. Your subconscious mind processes 11 million bits of information every second. Your conscious mind only processes 50 bits of information per second. So that means that while I am sitting here and talking to you, I am registering the TV that I can hear downstairs. I'm registering that my dog is, on a green chair in front of me, kind of licking at her side. June, stop. Junie, stop it. I'm registering everything that's happening around me. And that's what your subconscious is. So that's kind of point one, being that everything that you've absorbed with any sense, touch, sight, taste, smell, anything you've absorbed is in your subconscious mind. So that becomes useful if you're forgetting something. Now, beyond that, because your conscious mind is only capable of processing such a small amount of information every second, it has a hard time, I guess, knowing what to do. So like this is where the whole gut instinct thing comes in. If you learn to trust your instincts, you trust your gut, you do what you know you should do. That comes from your subconscious. That's your subconscious telling you that. Where we run into trouble is if we try to think our way through something and we do the wrong thing. That's because it's not the right answer. You're trying to reach for the right answer without the right amount of information. Now, to kind of close on the subconscious mind thing, you can give your subconscious mind a problem and it will give you a solution. And I know the way I'm describing that, it makes it sound like it's like something separate from you, which obviously isn't the case. But I guess it almost helps to think of it as something separate from you, because then you can just let it do its thing. Because really you don't have access to the subconscious. You just have access to your conscious thoughts, right? So if you want something, you can think about it, get the idea, then let go of it, stop thinking about it, and options will start to get spit out. They're usually pretty small. I had another video recently where I talked about the invention of chicken soup for the soul, and that's exactly what that was for that guy. I can't remember his name, the guy who wrote those books. But he decided he wanted to make X amount of dollars, and then he was taking a shower and he got the idea for chicken soup for the soul. And he didn't really go into detail on how much information he was given from the subconscious about writing those books. But he said that's how it happened. I mean, I would imagine it kind of just came to him as a loose idea, and then he grabbed it and started to play with it a little bit, and those books made a lot of money. So, in summary of that book, Power of the Subconscious Mind, it teaches you how to use your entire mind. Because, I mean, if you're anything like me, for the longest time, I thought that I had to think my way through everything, you know? And then what would actually end up happening is I would get in my own way instead of just listening to my gut for about 10 years. So if you're in that position where you're overthinking like that book will help you out a lot. All right, this is the one that I just went and grabbed, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is super classic. It's a classic book. I don't know when it was written. 1997 it was written by Robert Kiyosaki. And he also has another book that I really enjoyed called The Cash Flow Quadrant, which I think I'll summarize after I talk about this book. So Robert Kiyosaki, his dad was poor, and he had a friend whose dad was rich. And his dad was very traditional in work and like how he did things. So he traded his time for money. He was a teacher, and money was always a problem for him. The rich dad taught him not to trade your time for money, but to acquire assets which are valuable. And assets can be subjective. The digital product that I built, Mindset Mastery, that's an asset, right? That's something that you own, that's created, that can make you money. Real estate is an asset, right? So that's sort of the premise of this book. It helps you wrap your mind around what is actually valuable, right? Now that other book I mentioned, The Cash Flow Quadrant, is a great follow-up to this book. I think he might have had 3. He's probably got more by now, but 3 from like this Rich Dad, Poor Dad era. And, you know, that book is very scientific. It's kind of right to the point. And the purpose of it, again, is in the title. So Kiyosaki presents this argument for how you move through earning. So you have employment, self-employed, business owner, and investor. Now the idea is to get to investor as quick as possible. So if you're an investor, you're investing into businesses, you're investing into stocks, you're taking your capital and you're letting your capital earn profits for yourself. That's the ultimate in the business world. Bottom of the pile is obviously employee. If you're an employee, you're locked into what you're earning. You can't barely survive off of that, especially today, right? After employee is self-employed. So essentially, if you're self-employed, it's not that much different from being an employee. What you've essentially done, especially in sort of like a business like mine, which is photo and video marketing, you've invented a new job for yourself, and you then just have, in my case, like 5 to 10 bosses from any given time instead of just one, right? It's still great, and I love doing it, but that's kind of like the next little part in that quadrant. Then ideally you move to business owner. Whether you built the business yourself or you buy a business that already exists, you just own that business. And you're not so much involved in the day-to-day. You have people in place that do the work for you. This business is your asset, and you're not tied so much to how you spend your time doing that specific work anymore. And then again, cycling back to the investor, that's obviously the ultimate. You've made smart choices throughout your life, and you've earned enough capital to use that capital to invest into various businesses or funds, and that capital just pays you. Okay? Now, beyond these books, I have an honorable mention, which isn't actually a book. It was a audio program that I believe was probably sold on vinyl back in the day, and it was in the 60s, and that was Anything by Earl Nightingale. And I first found Earl Nightingale, I think it was one of the first books that I read mentioned it, or it was maybe some other video I was watching mentioned it. There's this YouTube video called The Strangest Secret. And he's got this really rough and gruff voice, and he talks like this, probably from talking for his whole career. And those audiobooks were in my headphones for the first 2 years of building up my business. And it taught me everything I needed to know. So if you want to start a business, or you're currently starting a business and you're having a hard time kind of mindset-wise, I would highly suggest Anything by Earl Nightingale. E-A-R-L Nightingale. Spelled how it sounds. I think the one that is the biggest volume is called The Secret Advantage. So check that out. That was good. Thanks for hanging out for a bit. How long was this? I can't see. Oh, that's a doozy. If you're still here, you're a machine. And if you like this one, you can watch this video. It's actually a breakdown of that book that I had mentioned was my fave, Think and Grow Rich. I kind of go more in depth on every chapter in this book and give a really thorough summary of this book in its entirety. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next one, and take care.